So maybe if you can just introduce yourselves to our viewers, who you are, and then also how you guys met.
Madam.
I guess that.
We are Mr. and Mrs. Cain Ndumiso. I'm Cain Ndumiso's banda. This is my wife, Mrs. Nomusa Sakiri. Nurse Weche, but now she's banda. Yeah.
And how do you guys meet?
Oh, that's an interesting tale, yeah?
Yeah.
I really wish I could say it's the conventional way that everyone meets, but I first saw her on a picture, like friends with people that I knew were standing with her, and then I was like, oh guys, why are you standing with my wife?
Oh.
People, I love joking, so people thought I was joking. I was like, okay, fine, guys, give me the details of the lady. Everyone went silent. Like, oh, good. So after about 2 or 3 days, a friend came and told me. I was like, okay, cool. And then one day, I saw her on my timeline. But now I could recognize the sender.
That's Facebook.
That's Facebook, yeah. So I saw the sender. I was like, nah, there's only one person with that sender. And that was my primary school teacher.
Wow.
So I slid straight into a DM. I was like, tell me you're not the daughter of Mr. So-and-so. And then she laughed. Then I knew it was there. Yeah, from there, then we started talking. She confirmed that, yeah, really, I'm the daughter. The father taught me in grade 6 and grade 7. Yeah, that's how.
So you're a difficult student?
No, I was a brilliant student.
Okay. Sorry, the stress.
The stress. So, yeah, then that's how we met. Then the physical meeting, I had to travel from Pumalanga, come to Josie. And the funny thing, on that day, my son didn't come through.
Oh.
So I stood up the whole day. So she waited up for me. I got here, I told her, I should be taking you out, but I don't have money. I don't have money to go back to Mpumalanga. I don't have money to take you anywhere, but can you wait with me? Money will come through. That was the first test.
Hey,
She waited.
Yeah.
And she passed. And money came through. And here we are.
Awesome. Lovely story. Oh, thank you. So just following up on that, what made you, both of you, decide this is it? This is my person. We sort of understand. You saw the picture and you were like, this is my wife. But like, what made you say, you know what, this is it?
Well, I think for me it was the many coincidences in our lives. I mean, the first thing was the fact that he was my father's student. So the first thing was, Dad, do you know this guy? And he's like, oh my God, he was such a brilliant student. I loved him so much. I'm like, oh wow, okay. And my dad is not the kind of guy who just loves everybody. So I was like, okay, point number one. Well, at that point I didn't really see him in that.
What?
Yeah. Well, until he did make his intentions clear. And after that, it was just coincidence after another. His cousin is married to my mom's cousin. Our brothers know each other. Like, it was just a whole string of coincidences. I was like, this is just too good. You know, and the way he was towards me, I mean, it's quite beautiful to meet a guy and he's so clear about his intentions towards you. This is how I feel about you. This is what I see in you, and it was really beautiful for someone to say, I actually see my future in your eyes. Yeah, for me that was the point where I was like, yeah, I can actually see myself with somebody who keeps his word. Like, first and foremost, this guy, when he says, I'm going to do this, he is going to do it, he's going to fulfill that. So that's what I love the most about him. It reminded me so much of my father. So I saw my brother in him, my father in him, my best friend, and I was like, what more can I want? Like, what could I be looking for? So I was like, yeah, he's it.
Awesome.
He's it. Yeah.
On my side, I think the motto that I've come to live by is organize yourself for what you pray for. You can't be praying for a wife when you're not organized to be having one. So I had to clear first my yard, and when she came, she hasn't had any drama because my yard was clean.
Yeah.
So
Intention.
yeah, with that intense and intention to say, okay, this is what I want, and when it comes, it must find me ready. So I was already. There are times when my dad calls me. He's in his 60s now. He's been married for more than 30 years. He calls me and says, I don't understand your mom. So I realized that there is no way that you can say you'd understand someone before you can marry them, because if my father still says he doesn't understand my mom, and my mom complains and says I don't understand your dad, so definitely this is not an issue about understanding. So it's just an issue of commitment, commit and see it through. So for me to see that really it was her, it was that comfort of knowing that I know the father. My cousin is married to the family. Her brother is my young brother's friend. So with all those coincidences, and then I'm a radical person even when I'm speaking to God. I did tell God that I don't want mediocrity. I want a woman that will match me in all the spheres of life. I walk out of church, I'm a crazy person. Can you give me someone that can handle my craziness? I don't want to be told, baby, please come down. I want someone who will cheer me on in my craziness. So I told God that I don't want to stress anyone. I don't want to be that guy that wants to be chacharak and my wife says sit down. So I said, no, God, let's be real with this. I want someone that I'll say, I'll be shocked, and really I was shocked. She goes crazier than me. I'm like, what did I get myself? So yeah, for me, that was probably one of the interesting things, that when I met her, she didn't pretend as if I'm a guy that she has never seen. She really was crazy about this, so I knew that, okay, if the craziness ticks, then I'm cool.
So Cain, you mentioned something really interesting about the conversations you were having with God about the wife you wanted. I just want you to speak further into that. Like, what was happening in your life when you were like, okay, God, this is a time now where I want to settle down, I want to find the person I want to do life with, and also if you had some experiences, were you having conversations with God? Like, where were you in your faith walk in terms of relationships, what you wanted? If you were praying for it, just if you guys could just speak on that.
I'll speak on my side. My life takes a lot of funny turns. It actually is a life that I actually didn't envision it for myself. I grew up in a family that loves education, so I was sent through school to do almost everything that every kid can do. I could do anything. I started off doing sciences, I was moved into business, I did accounting at varsity, out of varsity, I'm working as an accountant, and boom, God says I must write a book. I'm not good with writing. I actually failed my English at high school. So now I'm like, but God, you know me and writing. He says, nah, you have to. So I started up writing, and I've been speaking for some time. I realized the atmosphere that I would speak in, and the people that I would speak with, and the people that I would speak to. I realized that in that sphere, if I do not get married before I publish the book, I might actually be a nuisance to the book. And actually to the people that I'm trying to speak to, I'll probably be a problem to their daughters, to myself, to... So I spoke to God and said, okay, I know you really want me to publish a book, but also I think it would be fair for me also to be settled and have a home where I would know that even after doing all this, I still need to go back home. So I told him that I'm going to suspend 2018. I need a wife. I gave him a timeline. By 2018, I should be married. Then we can continue doing. So I remember when Solomon says, "Don't be foolish and make a vow with God." God does not forget. So I had to make sure. And then I had no girlfriend. I told him that the girl that you're going to give me now is going to be my wife. So when she came along and I was ticking my boxes, I said, okay, thank you for that, thank you for that, thank you for that. So after that, I realized I cannot relax now because I told God that 2018 I must be married. And that was around August last year.
No, when did you have that conversation? Was it in 2016, 2017?
2018 around March. I said this must happen. So she came along around April. Then around August I had forgotten. I was now enjoying the relationship. I had forgotten everything. Then she asked me, so are you planning on going to see my parents? Then I remembered that I told God that it must be in 2018. So for me that was the wake-up call. Like I was just splurging money, but then from that time I started realizing that I made a vow to God. I need to really, and where I see him, the way that he came through for me, what I had envisioned, how I would want to get married, because I'm pro-African, so I was really hoping that I would get a family that I would come to. When we discussed lobola, we are actually discussing marriage. So I prayed about that because I knew that financially I wouldn't be able to start up lobola, then go and prepare for a huge wedding and all those things. So by the time when I went to the parents, when she went to the parents and asked them what would they want for her, they told her the same thing that I wanted, that if he comes with this, we will give. We would marry you guys because that's what we believe in. We don't believe that there is a lot of things that needs to be done if the young man is willing. So for me, I knew that God had already come through for me. So it was for me now to make it happen. And I made it happen. And 6 months later, she became my wife. 6 months from August.
Powerful. And good for you?
Well, my dad was always the person to push me to say, Danami, pray for a God-fearing man. He was always that man who always wanted the best for me. I've always been a daddy's girl. So he's like, make sure you pray for the man who's going to be in your life forever. Make sure he's a man, first and foremost, who fears God. I don't mind any other thing, but he has to be a man who fears God. So when I met him, when he texted, I just went through his wall and I see a lot of craziness, but it involved the Bible. It involved scripture. It involved him, and his ideas of religion, Christianity. So I found that very intriguing. I was like, okay, fine, he is a Christian and he's a strong one for that matter. So I think God just made him come our way, and I mean, since then it's just been beautiful. It's, when you talk to married people and they're like, don't rush it, it's difficult, but I mean, for me it's been amazing. It's been beautiful. Okay, we haven't been together for that long, but I mean, I think we have the fundamentals already. We're practically the same person. We share so many interests. We support each other. We love each other. And I think that's going to push us, for
a long time.
Yeah.
So, but you've been together, you say, for a short time, but you guys seem you're really in sync already. And I wonder if you just want to share with us, your most joyous moments and your most challenging moments, and maybe what lessons you've learned from that so far.
Okay, for the sync part, I developed in my head that it is impossible for opposite people to be in a relationship. I mean, we've been told when we're growing up that opposite attracts. I haven't been married for long, but I've been in relationships, and that's the most difficult thing, to be in a relationship with someone that is a direct opposite of yourself. So when I met her, I saw a female version of myself. I was like, okay, this is cool. Because my craziness, her craziness, they sync. Like, we probably would need someone outside of us to control us. And like, this is now too much. Yeah, like, otherwise the two of us, hey, we can make a mess. So I thought of it and I said, if she can be my friend, because I tell her every time that the love that I have for you is not the love that people talk about. To me, you're like me. So what I would do for me, I'll do it for you. You're just a female version of me. Where I feel like I'm being under pressure right now, I know exactly that you'll be under pressure. Her likes, my likes are almost the same. We might differ just one or two things, but the majority of things we're in sync. But because we managed to grow mostly our friendship, but the most difficult thing was our distance. I was in Mpumalanga. That was the challenging part. So I had to come probably 2 weekends in a month. It's expensive for me to be coming to Mpumalanga. I would tell her, before we started saving up for Lobola, I would tell her, okay, I'll be there almost every weekend, but I'll be chowing on your Lobola money. Then she was like, okay, from this time on, it's okay if you come twice. And then the other time she'd say, okay, fine, please come, at least let's make it around, I think around November, we're making it once a month. Because now we're getting closer to the date that we've given the parents that we're coming. So that was the most difficult part, the distance. But
I'm trying to build a relationship and strengthen a relationship over the phone. You know,
you have to stay on the phone. Like you're working all day. I work probably 24 hours a day. I have to make sure I manage the relationship, and so I have to be online, talking to her, checking up on her, keeping the relationship interesting. You have to come up with ways of making it interesting from a distance. That was the challenging part. But for me, the most glorious moment for this relationship was me seeing her father. Like, he is the man that, besides my family, is the first teacher that I remember believing that I would actually be something. I was the first head boy of that school when I was in grade 6. Normally it's grade 7, but he says, yeah, you and I, we can take it up. So I was actually a head boy for 2 years in primary school.
So he saw that leadership potential in you already.
He didn't know that he was preparing me
Yo.
for the job.
Amazing. Wow.
So when I met him, for me, that was the most beautiful moment of the relationship. And as much as there's a lot of things that we've gone through, but yeah, for her, I think the proposal was interesting.
Tell us.
Yeah.
the proposal, it was the day he was meeting my mom. So we had my aunt, my mom's older sister, my mother, my brother, and his wife. So we just went out for lunch. So after the lunch, okay, so he'd connived with my brother. So he's like, let's take pictures. Just go stand by the water there. We go to the water, okay, we're posing, and I'm busy. Then, okay.
The next thing the niggas disappear.
The next thing the guy's going down, and I'm like, it was beautiful. The fact that I had the guts to do it in front of my mother, you know, in front of so many people.
Those were apples.
Yeah. For me, that was the defining moment. I mean, I had known his intentions, yes, but you know, it still didn't change that element of surprise, those feelings. You know, it's been, that was the most beautiful. And yeah, the difficult part was the distance. It's not that easy, you know, having a long distance relationship, but I think it's a matter of commitment. Yeah. You tell yourself this is it. It's discipline, basically. you know, it's not that you don't encounter more temptations or, you know, things that are stumbling blocks, but you just have to work things through. And I believe our communication has been the strongest point of this relationship. We communicate. We're real about the communication. No matter how unhappy it makes the other part, but you just have to be straight and honest about it, because you know, at the end of the day, this is a forever thing. So we can't.
That's so interesting. So maybe that's what God was using, the distance. He was building that communication aspect, because most married couples that we've actually spoken to, it's like communication is a thing. You know, so maybe God was using that time to build that communication bond, you know.
Yeah, and then I speak to you mostly to say my challenge, probably I will say this, my challenge is I tell her there's a difference between complaining and communicating. we fight a lot about that. But complaining is not communicating. Once you complain, I also become defensive. And remember, I'm not, I understand you, yes, but I'm not you. So I can do things my way, not that I'm trying to be spiteful, but I'm just me. So when you then address me, don't complain, because once you complain, you're already pointing at my character flaw, and I won't take it lightly. I would also defend myself, and when it comes to that, it won't be as nice as you would want it to be, like a small thing. I mean, as couples, we actually make big meals out of small things. Like, I might be having a lot of things in my heart, but that trigger moment when you complain about something small, everything comes up.
Yes.
So we're trying to learn to say, communicate more than you complain. If you don't like something, don't complain about it. Communicate it. Like beforehand, just talk about it. Yo, babe, I don't like this. Before you start complaining, because once you start complaining, you're making it as if we've been at it like for the past 20 years and you're still doing the same thing. And if I'm going to be doing the same thing for the next 20 years, I think it's time you accept that that's how I am, instead of complaining about it.
Let's pray over time that
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Of which, our differences are not that much. So
That's awesome. So is your cultural identity affecting your relationship? I mean, are you both, like, is there any difference? Are you both Ndebele, Zulu, Swati, you know? Is that a factor in your relationship, or have you found that it's important in your relationship? Or your cultural background, your upbringing?
culture really plays a huge factor in a relationship. We, like I say, being pro-African, for us, it's not just us. It's families that are involved. So if there are cultural glitches, you might think that people hate you, but it's just a cultural difference. So for us, it was good because we come from almost the same background. So the day when I went to see the family to pay the lobola, I was told that I'm supposed to slaughter a goat. If I really came from a different background, that could have been a no-no. That could have been actually taken us a long time. But for me, because it's a similar culture, I was actually excited about it. I didn't mind the lobola part, whatever they charged me, but I was just interested in the part where I have to go and slaughter a goat. Because for me and the father, that was our communication. He went there to inspect and see that can I provide food for your child. So if I cannot slaughter a goat, so how am I going to provide food for her? So when I did that to the father, that was a blast to say, okay, this young man is ready. And I like that so much because I grew up in a family where we did these things almost every holiday. We're coming from school, here is a goat slaughter. Not knowing that I'm being prepared for a life that I have to go and prove myself to another man that I'm actually a man by doing so. So the culture for us played a very significant role in that it did not make things difficult for us. It actually made things easier for us. We spoke the same language, we spoke with the same understanding, that to them this is what marriage is, and to us that's exactly the same thing that marriage is, so that we don't have a lot of trying to cross over. I mean, I've seen where people have to cross over cultures, and some of the things are watered down just to accommodate the new person.
culture,
And then when they are being accommodated, there's a lot of things that are compromised. And then in the long run, people will start complaining and say, yeah, this marriage is not working because you didn't do that. But you couldn't do that because you were sensitive to the cultural differences. But for us, it was just in sync. It was just one line, continuing from what you know from your family into the next family. And yours?
It's quite the same, really. I mean, we have the same culture, so it hasn't been difficult. Like you said, it made things even more easier, especially the slaughtering part. To my dad, I was very impressed by that. So thumbs up to him. But then I wasn't brought up in that sort of environment whereby you have to be slaughtering, and so that does pose a challenge, sort of, for my side, you know, because they have expectations of me also as umakoti, you know. You have to be able to do certain things and to prove yourself as well. So, yeah, despite the culture difference, the similarity, I just have to learn to do certain things, you know, because there'll be aunties, uncles expecting me to do certain things. So it's, for my side, it's just being a person who learns, a fast learner, because, you know, the older generation can be a bit stern and, you know, on certain cultural things, but yeah, I think it won't be as much of a difficulty as somebody crossing over from another culture.
And so last question, so what do you guys think we get wrong about how we challenge our cultures? Because, you know, we're Christians, and how we've come to understand God and
We're also
African and marriage and relationships, you know. So what do you think the mistake is that we make, and how we sort of challenge in trying to marry the two, you know? Because sometimes, you know, the critique can be on too much on one end versus the other end. Even how we celebrate weddings, you know, is it necessary to, for example, do you just need a pastor there to bless a wedding, or do you need to have it in a church? You know, things like that. So what do you think about how we interrogate marriage culture within our Christian realm and all of that, and being Africans, you know? You got 10 minutes.
You're actually asking me to write another one.
No, but speak really well.
For me, on an academic point of view, we Christians are actually trying to eat up the product with the plastic. The culture of marriage that we are being subjected to by the Europeans is not a biblical thing. It's their culture. So for us, we were discussing that, are we going to do two cultures for one thing? Are we going to have an African wedding and have a European wedding? But unfortunately, it's because we exalt and adore people that are powerful than us. The dispensation of colonization actually left us looking up to our colonizer. So we actually feel like we have done good when we reach his standard. And when it comes to marriage, the white wedding becomes the standard of every union. So once you did not have it, you feel like you haven't arrived. You are not entirely married. So for us, we were like, if we are going to have anything different from our children, we must also believe that we are married by doing it the African way.
Yes.
Because whatever that they're doing is just their culture. It has nothing to do with Christianity. So once we got brave enough to separate the two, we came back into the African culture and said, who actually marries people?
Yeah.
It's the father of the bride. If he shakes your hand as a young man and says, you are now my son-in-law, you are married. And that, you can check it in the Bible, that many a times it's the father that gives the daughter. You won't see any priest there available. It's probably once or twice where probably a king is being married, but the rest of the guys, it was the father. Jacob went there alone, and it was Laban who said, I give you my daughter. So we actually delegate the role of the father to, and this is why we don't pay lobola to church. Really, I might sound queer and all, but we don't pay lobola to church, we don't pay damages to church. We still go back to that same father because he is blessing. We can't take away the fact that he brought her into the world. And just because he's got our Pathfinder stamp, then we want to go to the church more than we go to the father. He might not be believing the same things that we believe in, but God believed him to give her us. So if God didn't believe that that man can raise her, he would have actually given her to the church. The church should be giving birth to children, but because the church does not do that, it is parents that give birth to children. It is their godly right to marry their children. And this is why the negotiation didn't happen in church. I had to go to the father. The father had to marry me. If the father says, yes, you're my son-in-law, no one can actually, it's actually his blessing. So because we live in environments where we've been colonized, now we have to go and approve ourselves to the government and say we are married. Yes, we'll have to do that for the sake of the legalities. But in terms of the spirituality of marriage, the father is the key. The father figure of that family is the key. If he says no, to us as Africans, he has said no. There's nothing that we can do. If he says yes, anyone else's yes does not matter once he has said that yes. So the challenge that young people are having, I also had that challenge because I thought I must pile up a lot of money so that I can be able to do these two cultures, the European one and the African one, put them together. We actually discussed it and said, okay, let's be honest. The white wedding thing is a European culture. If we're going that route, we don't need to be lowering. So if your family want the white culture, I'm not lowering because they don't lower. So we'll just go to the court, we sign, we have our white wedding. That's it. But if they want us to come and lower, then we cancel out the other one. It's an unnecessary expense. So many, for young, especially for young men, we are under pressure because of the pressure that you give us as young ladies. Every time when we talk, I mean, a favorite show is Yes to the Dress. So you as a guy, we also catch the hints that this is what she wants. She will tell you that this is what I envisioned for my marriage, for my wedding day. So for many guys, because the communication is always difficult because we are scared to offend our ladies, we keep quiet and let her go on preparing her own wedding without us telling her that as an it won't happen. So we keep quiet until we expire out of the relationship. But if it was just a conversation that people should sit down and say, okay, this that you want is not feasible for us.
And it makes it more beautiful because my father was also in it, which makes the cultural thing a plus for us. Because my father was like, the moment he comes in here and I give him my blessing and he slaughters that goat, he is in this family, and you guys, you are married in this family. So I think it's the culture really made it quite beautiful for us. I mean, if it was another culture and you say, no, I just want to do this, just have a small celebration and that is it, some parents wouldn't. And especially from church, you know, the church standard, you just have to have a white wedding for you to be deemed a married couple. So it's a lot of pressure for us as black people because we're expected to do the cultural thing and to do the other thing, which is an expense to us compared to what the whites usually do. They don't pay lobola. What they do is they ask for the blessings from the father, they get married, and that is it.
Small ceremony.
That's it.
But then because we not accept the reality of which we live in. So we also had to compromise, in as much as the cultures are too and all those things. She wanted things and I would say no, but we had to compromise for the ring. She said, no, I hear your Africanness and all those things, but no, I want my ring. So it became blackish, like, okay. We accepted. I had to accept that, okay, it's fine. It shouldn't be my desires all along, but let's also hear her side. So she said, okay, I want this. Please do this for me. I also want to have my bling. So I was like, okay, fine, let's go buy the bling. But we stick to the plan. We can have a celebration of which we confuse with the wedding and the marriage. There is a celebration and then there is the union. And many of us confuse those two. We want to make those two into one thing.
That's what my question was going to be, because I think the beef within our church is, or with our beliefs, is that what makes a union the union, right? Is it the families coming together and saying, okay, the children have decided that this was going to happen, we're giving our blessing. And I think the challenge then becomes, because we're growing up going to church, you know, and then if these things come up when we, you know, when we decide to get married, so then if someone were to ask you, where was God in that union or that celebration, what would you say? Because those are the questions that people generally get, you know.
Yeah, I think the challenge is, we think, especially as a church, we think that God is represented by a pastor. So the absence of a pastor makes people jittery, thinking that God is not in it. But for us, we honored the authority of the Father. And his presence was the presence of God. If the Father is there, God is in it. Because at the end of the day, this marriage, the breaking up of it, the growing of it, the children will call his father grandpa. So he is in it. They would never call the pastor grandfather. So that link for us to honor, I think that's the other part that we actually don't understand, or that we haven't conceived, that the part of honoring parents, which is a commandment. There is no honor your pastor there. There is honor your father and mother. And if your father is not happy with the marriage that you are having when the church is happy, you've actually started off on a wrong footing. Remember, the one that needs to be honored was never the pastor. It was the parents. So if the parents approve, then if you have done that which God asks you to do, then we have actually invited him to say, okay, God, come and be with us. So because of that, we know it's a bit of a dissonance, that we also are still thinking that, there was no pastor to do this. Is this thing actually legit? Because we grew up in an environment that says it's only the pastor that legitimizes this. But then we had to be brave to say, in us accepting that we are Africans and us accepting that we are actually God's creation, we need to also accept the fact that this is how we do things. We shouldn't shy away from the fact that this is how our people do things. And once we do that, we actually participate in demonizing our own things. And then when we say, okay, we want to be pro-African on this side, then on this side, no, we can't be pro-African, we need to jump on this side. So once we take strong stands as young people to say, okay, this is a standpoint that we're going to do, we actually, the church should be invited into this marriage, not us being invited by the church into our own marriage. See, I think that's probably the biggest challenge, that people would want to please the church more than they would want to please the people that are supposed to be pleased. And at the end of the day, if you ask ourselves, who is the church? See, so if we go back home, which is probably the best place where church can be, if home is satisfied with what you're doing, I think that the plight that we have as young people, especially in our churches, many of the young people will be married if we knew who to please. Can't please the congregation. You can't please you can't negotiate with the congregation, but you can go and negotiate with the Father. If the Father sees you, you can talk to him. The church has got so many standards. People have a lot of things, but if you approach the men that raised your wife, you actually will realize that all the things that you were thinking about that you thought were difficult are not even difficult.